Before we begin this incredible story of heartbreak and hope, I have a quick question for you. Where are you watching from? Please let me know in the comments. Tolu Alabi was the richest man in the city. He owned tall buildings made of glass and gold. He had everything a person could ever want. But today, Tolu Alabi was just a man trapped in a body that would not move. He lay in a bed that cost more than a house, but his heart felt like it was breaking. The door to his bedroom swung open. The smell of expensive perfume filled the air. It was Chitara, his wife. She was wearing a beautiful red dress and sparkling diamonds. She didn't look at Tolu's face. She didn't even say hello. "You are so boring now, Tolu," Chitara said, looking at herself in the mirror. "You just lay there. You are like a piece of old furniture. I have a party to go to. Don't make a mess." She laughed a cold, sharp laugh. She reached onto his nightstand and took his expensive gold watch. "You won't be needing this anymore," she whispered. Then, she walked out and slammed the door. Tolu wanted to cry, but even his tear ducts felt tired. He was thirsty. His throat felt like it was full of sand. He tried to make a sound, but only a tiny puff of air came out. He was a billionaire, but he couldn't even get a glass of water. Suddenly, the door opened again. It wasn't Chitara. It was Kemi. Kemi was the maid. She wore a simple gray uniform. Her hands were rough from hard work, but her eyes were the kindest eyes Tolu had ever seen. She didn't look at the gold or the expensive paintings. She looked straight at Tolu. "Oh, Mr. Alabi," Kemi whispered. She saw his dry lips. She saw the way his eyes looked dull. She didn't just give him water. She brought a soft cloth and warm water. She gently wiped his face. She spoke to him like he was a king. "I'm here, sir. You are not alone. I know you are in there. I can see you." She spent the next hour cleaning him, changing his sheets, and humming a soft, sweet song. For the first time in months, Tolu felt like a human being. Kemi didn't care about his billions. She cared about him. But then, the front door downstairs banged open. Chitara was back, and she wasn't alone. Tolu heard a man's voice. A voice he didn't recognize. "Is he still upstairs?" the man asked. "Yes," Chitara laughed. "He's basically a vegetable. He can't hear us. He can't do anything. The lawyers are coming tomorrow. Once he signs the papers, or once I help him sign them, all the money is ours. We can finally send him away to that cheap home in the country and never see him again." Tolu's heart raced. His own wife was planning to steal everything and throw him away like trash. Kemi stood by the bed, her face turning pale. She had heard everything. She looked at Tolu, and he looked at her. In that moment, Kemi made a choice. She leaned down and whispered, "I won't let them hurt you, Mr. Alabi. I promise." But just then, the bedroom door flew open. Chitara stood there, her eyes turning into angry slits when she saw Kemi holding Tolu's hand. "What are you doing in here, you pathetic girl?" Chitara screamed. "Pack your bags. You are fired. Get out of my house right now." To understand how Tolu ended up in that bed, we have to look back 2 years. Tolu Alabi was a genius. He grew up with nothing. He worked 2 jobs to go to school. He built a computer company from his garage. He was strong, fast, and very smart. He was the kind of man who would help a cat stuck in a tree or give $1 million to a children's hospital without telling anyone. Then he met Chitara. She was a model. She was the most beautiful woman Tolu had ever seen. He fell in love instantly. He gave her everything. He bought her a ring the size of a grape. He gave her credit cards with no limits. He thought she loved him for his soul, but Chitara only loved his bank account. The accident happened on a rainy Tuesday. Tolu was driving home to surprise Chitara with flowers for their anniversary. A big truck lost control on the slippery road. There was a loud crunch of metal. Tolu woke up in a hospital 3 weeks later. He couldn't move his legs. He couldn't move his arms. He could only blink and move his head a tiny bit. The doctor said it was a miracle he was alive, but he might never walk again. When Chitara found out, she didn't cry because she was sad for Tolu. She cried because she was worried the money would stop coming in. She hated the hospital smell. She hated seeing Tolu weak. "Fix him," she told the doctors. "I didn't marry a man who just sits there." When they brought Tolu home, Chitara hired Kemi. Kemi was a young woman from a small village. She needed the money to help her sick mother. Kemi was different from anyone Chitara knew. Kimmy didn't care about fashion or fame. She believed that every person deserved respect. Chitara stopped visiting Tolu's room. She started spending more time at clubs and expensive shops. She stopped paying the best doctors to come visit him. She began to treat the house like it was only hers. Kimmy, however, became Tolu's lifeline. "Good morning, Mr. Alabi," Kimmy would say every single day at 7 a.m. She would open the curtains so the sun could hit his face. "The birds are singing today. It's a beautiful day to get better." She would read the newspaper to him. She would tell him stories about her village. She even brought her own small radio and played classical music because she noticed Tolu's eyes brightened when he heard the violin. One afternoon, a few months before the firing incident, something small but beautiful happened. Kimmy was telling Tolu a funny story about a goat in her village. Suddenly, Tolu's left index finger flickered. It was a tiny movement like a butterfly wing. Kimmy gasped. "Mr. Alabi, you moved. Did you see that?" Tolu blinked twice. 2 blinks for yes. Kimmy cried out happily. "Oh, we're going to get you back, sir." "I know we are." She didn't tell Chitara. She knew Chitara wouldn't care. Instead, Kimmy started doing secret physical therapy with him. She would gently move his fingers and toes. She would talk to him for hours, keeping his brain sharp. She treated him like a king, even when he felt like a ghost. But while Kimmy was building Tolu up, Chitara was tearing his life down. Chitara started bringing a man named Victor to the house. Victor was a smooth-talking man with expensive suits and a dishonest smile. He was a lawyer who knew how to hide money. "The company boards are getting suspicious," Victor told Chitara one night in the library. Tolu could hear them through the vents. "They want to see Tolu. They want to know why he hasn't signed the annual reports." "I'll just forge his signature," Chitara said carelessly. "Or we can say he's too sick and I have power of attorney. I want a mansion in South Africa, Victor, and I want it now." Tolu lay in his dark room, listening to his wife plot to steal his life's work. He felt a deep, cold sadness. He had given her everything, and she was waiting for him to disappear. Then came a night Chitara found Kimmy in the room. After Chitara screamed at Kimmy to get out, she didn't stop there. "You think you can protect him?" Chitara sneered, walking closer to Kimmy. "He's a statue. He's a zero. And you? You're just a girl who scrubs floors." Chitara grabbed Kimmy by the arm and pulled her toward the door. "I'm calling the police. I'll tell them you stole my jewelry. If you ever come back here, you'll go to jail." Kimmy looked at Tolu. Her eyes were filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mr. Alabi," she whispered. Kimmy was forced to leave that night. She was thrown out into the rain with nothing but her small bag. Tolu was left alone in the dark. Chitara walked back into the room. She looked at Tolu with a look of pure hatred. "Now that the help is gone, things are going to change. I'm tired of paying for your expensive medicine. You don't need to be comfortable anymore." She reached over and turned off the machine that helped Tolu breathe more easily. She turned off the heater. The room began to grow cold. "Victor and I are going to the gala tonight," Chitara said, checking her lipstick in a mirror. "When we come back, you're going to sign some papers. And then, we're moving you to the basement until the home has a bed ready." She turned out the lights and left. Tolu lay in the freezing dark. He tried to move. He tried to scream. His lungs felt heavy. He thought about Kimmy. He thought about her kindness. He didn't want to die like this. He didn't want the bad people to win. Suddenly, he heard a sound at the window. Tap, tap, tap. Someone was climbing the rose trellis outside. A hand appeared on the window, then a head. It was Kimmy. Her hair was soaked from the rain. Her face was scratched from the thorns. She struggled, but she pushed the window open and crawled into the room. "I'm here," she panted, shivering from the cold. "I didn't leave. I hid in the garden." She saw the machines were off. She quickly turned them back on. She wrapped Tolu in 3 heavy blankets. "We have to get you out of here," Kimmy said, her voice shaking. "I saw them. They have a van coming at midnight. They aren't taking you to a care home, Mr. Alabi. I heard Victor on the phone. They're taking you to a place where you won't come back from." Tolu's eyes widened. "I have a plan," Kimmy said, "but I need you to try. I need you to move just a little bit more. Can you do it for me?" Just as Kimmy reached for the wheelchair, the sound of a car engine revved in the driveway. It wasn't Chitara. It was a large black van. Two men in dark clothes got out. They were coming for him. The heavy boots of the men thudded on the grand marble staircase. To Tolu, it sounded like the beating of a giant, angry heart. Quickly, Kemi whispered. She was small, but she was strong from years of working in the fields of her village. She grabbed the bed sheets and used them to help slide Tolu's limp body into his specialized wheelchair. Tolu's head flopped to the side. He felt like a heavy sack of alabis. He wanted to help her. He wanted to push with his feet, but his body wouldn't listen. "Please, Tolu," Kemi begged, using his first name for the first time. "Help me." She pushed the wheelchair toward the back service elevator, the one used for laundry. Just as the elevator doors began to slide shut, the bedroom door burst open. "Where is he?" a man's voice shouted. The elevator moved down with a slow, metallic groan. Tolu and Kemi were trapped in a small metal box, descending into the heart of the house. When the doors opened in the kitchen, the room was dark. Kemi pushed the wheelchair through the back door and into the pouring rain. She didn't have a car. She didn't have a plan beyond getting him away from the monsters in the house. She pushed the heavy chair down the long, winding driveway of the estate. The mud splashed her legs. The wind whipped her face. "Stop!" a voice yelled from behind. Flashlights cut through the darkness. The men were coming. Kemi saw a small gardener's shed near the edge of the property. She pushed Tolu inside and pulled the door shut. They sat in the pitch black, smelling of damp earth and old lawnmowers. Outside, the voices grew louder. "They couldn't have gone far," one man said. "The girl is dragging a 200-pound man in a chair." "Find them," Chitara said. "If we don't finish this tonight, we don't get paid." Tolu felt Kemi's hand on his shoulder. She was trembling, but she didn't let go. He felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in years. Rage. He wasn't angry for himself. He was angry for Kemi. This kind, innocent girl was risking her life for a man who was supposed to be furniture. Deep inside Tolu's chest, something hot began to glow. It was his will to live. The men walked right past the shed. Their footsteps faded into the distance. "We have to go to the police," Kemi whispered. "No." Kemi froze. The sound was tiny. It was like the rustle of dry leaves. She looked down at Tolu. "Mr. Alabi, did you say something?" Tolu's jaw worked hard. His muscles felt like they were being pulled by wires. "No, police." He managed to wheeze. "Victor owns police." Kemi's heart sank. If Victor, the lawyer, was as powerful as Tolu said, the police might just hand them right back to Chitara. "Where do we go?" Kemi asked, her voice small. Tolu moved his eyes toward the old wooden desk in the corner of the shed. Kemi looked. There was nothing there but dust. "Under," Tolu whispered. Kemi knelt in the dirt. She felt under the desk. Her fingers hit a metal box. It was bolted to the floor, hidden by years of junk. "A keypad," Kemi said. Tolu blinked. He began to blink in a pattern. 3 blinks. Pause. 1 blink. Pause. 9 blinks. Kemi entered the code. 3-1-9-4. The box clicked open. Inside wasn't money. It wasn't gold. It was a small, high-tech satellite phone and a set of car keys. "The old garage," Tolu whispered, his voice getting stronger with every word. "The blue truck." Kemi managed to get Tolu to a hidden garage at the very back of the estate, covered by overgrown ivy. Inside sat a dusty, 20-year-old blue pickup truck. It was the first car Tolu had ever bought. Chitara hated it and thought it had been sold years ago. Kemi helped Tolu into the passenger seat. She had never driven an automatic truck before, but she had driven a tractor back home. She started the engine. It roared to life like an old lion. They drove for hours. They left the city behind. They left the diamonds and the betrayal behind. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Kemi pulled into a small, quiet farm. It was miles away from anyone. "This is my mother's house," Kemi said. "You will be safe here. No one knows this place exists." For the next few weeks, life was slow. Kemi's mother, a tiny woman with white hair and a warm smile, didn't ask questions. She just saw a man who was hurting. She cooked him thick vegetable soups. She used healing herbs from her garden to rub into his legs. Kemi never stopped working. She spent every waking hour helping Tolu. She didn't treat him like a patient. She treated him like a partner. She asked him for advice on the farm. She told him about her dreams of opening a school. And something miraculous started to happen. Away from the stress of the mansion, away from the poison of Chittera's words, Tolu began to heal. This secret therapy Kemi had started in the mansion began to show real results. One morning, Tolu sat at the kitchen table. Kemi was pouring him a cup of coffee. "Kemi," Tolu said. His voice was no longer a whisper. It was deep and steady. Kemi turned around, dropping the spoon. "Sir." Tolu reached out his right hand. It was shaking, but it moved. He picked up the coffee cup. He took a sip. "The soup," Tolu smiled. "It's better than the food at the Ritz." Kemi burst into tears and hugged him. "You're coming back. You're really coming back." "I am," Tolu said, his eyes turning cold like steel. "And it's time Chittera finds out that I'm not furniture anymore." But as they celebrated, a black car drove slowly down the dirt road outside the farm. A man in a suit was looking at a GPS screen. Back at the mansion, Chittera had found a clue. Kemi had forgotten her mother's address in her bedroom drawer. The car stopped at the gate. The window rolled down. It was Victor. He held a silenced pistol in his hand. "Found you," he whispered. Inside the house, Tolu was practicing standing up. He was leaning on Kemi, his legs trembling. "One more step, Tolu," Kemi encouraged. "Just one more." Suddenly, the front door was kicked open. Victor walked in, followed by two of his thugs. He looked around the humble kitchen with disgust. "How touching," Victor sneered. "The billionaire and the peasant. I almost feel bad about ending this." Kemi stepped in front of Tolu, shielding him with her own body. "Leave him alone. Take the money. Just leave us." "Oh, we're taking the money," Victor laughed. "But Chittera wants no loose ends. She's at the bank right now, transferring the final billions. Once I call her and tell her you're gone, the widow will be the richest woman in the world." Victor raised a gun. He pointed it at Kemi's head. "Move aside, girl. You weren't part of the plan, but you made yourself a target." Tolu looked at the gun. He looked at Kemi, who was willing to die for him. A roar came from deep inside Tolu's chest. It wasn't the roar of a sick man. It was the roar of a king. Tolu didn't just stand up. He lunged. His legs were weak, but his weight was massive. He threw himself forward, knocking Kemi out of the way just as Victor fired. "Phut!" The bullet hissed through the air, missing Kemi by an inch. Tolu crashed into Victor, sending them both smashing through the wooden kitchen table. "Run, Kemi!" Tolu screamed. "Run to the barn." But Victor was younger and faster. He kicked Tolu in the ribs and scrambled for his gun, which had slid across the floor. Victor reached the gun first. He pointed it at Tolu's chest. "Goodbye, Tolu," Victor said, his finger tightening on the trigger. Just as Victor was about to pull the trigger, a heavy iron frying pan slammed into the back of his head with a loud clang. Victor's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. Standing behind him was Kemi's mother, holding the pan with both hands, her face set in a look of pure fury. "Not in my kitchen," she snapped. Kemi rushed to Tolu's side. "Are you okay? Did he hit you?" Tolu breathed heavily, his heart pounding. He looked at the fallen lawyer, then at the two thugs who were just now entering the house. Seeing their boss unconscious and a very angry old woman with a frying pan, and realizing Tolu was actually moving, the thugs didn't stay. They turned and ran back to their car, speeding away. Tolu looked at Kemi. He took her hand. His grip was strong. "The game is over," Tolu said. "It's time to go home." The Alabi mansion was glowing with lights. Chittera was throwing a celebration gala. She told everyone it was a fundraiser for paralyzed victims, but she was really celebrating her new wealth. She wore a dress made of real gold threads. "To Tolu," Chittera said, raising a glass of champagne to the crowd of rich people. "He would have wanted us to be happy." Suddenly, the giant front doors of the ballroom swung open. The music stopped. The guests gasped. Walking down the center of the room, leaning on a simple wooden cane, was Tolu Alabi. He wasn't in a wheelchair. He wasn't wearing a hospital gown. He was in a perfectly tailored black suit. Beside him, walking with her head held high, was Kemi. She wore a simple but elegant dress Tolu had insisted on buying for her. Chittera's glass fell from her hand. It shattered on the floor, splashing champagne on her gold dress. "Tito Lu," she stammered, her face turning a ghostly white. "You're dead," Victor said. Victor is currently explaining his crimes to the district attorney, Tolu said, his voice echoing through the silent hall. He walked up to the stage. The guests parted like the Red Sea. "I have a confession to make," Tolu told the crowd. "I was paralyzed. I was broken. And the person I loved most tried to kill me for my money." He looked directly at Chitara. She tried to run, but two police officers stepped out from the shadows and blocked the exit. "But," Tolu continued, his voice softening, "I also found out that true royalty doesn't come from a bank account. It comes from the heart. While my wife treated me like trash, a woman who had nothing treated me like a king. She gave me her strength when I had none. She gave me her hope when I was in the dark." He turned to Kimmy and brought her to the middle. "Chitara Alabi," Tolu said, "the divorce papers are already filed. You are leaving this house with exactly what you brought into it. Nothing." Chitara was led away in handcuffs, screaming about her diamonds, but no one looked at her. All eyes were on Tolu and the girl in the simple dress. 1 year later, the Alabi mansion was no longer a cold, quiet place. It had been turned into the Kimmy Alabi Center for Recovery. It was a place where people who had been injured could come to heal for free. Tolu Alabi was fully recovered. He still walked with a slight limp, but he was stronger than he had ever been. He didn't care about being a billionaire anymore. He spent his days helping patients and working in the gardens. Kimmy didn't wear a maid's uniform anymore. She was the director of the center. She finally got to build her school, too. A school that taught children about empathy, kindness, and the importance of looking at a person's soul, not their clothes. One evening, as the sun set over the gardens, Tolu and Kimmy sat on a bench. "You saved my life, Kimmy," Tolu said. Kimmy smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. "You saved mine too, Tolu. You showed me that even the most powerful people need a little kindness." Tolu looked at the sunset. He realized that when he was a billionaire, he was actually poor. But now, with a friend like Kimmy and a life full of purpose, he was finally truly rich. The lesson of the story is simple. Money can buy a bed, but it can't buy sleep. It can buy a house, but can't buy a home. True greatness is found in how we treat those who can do nothing for us. Did you enjoy this story? If you want to see more stories about justice and kindness, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to tell me where you are watching from.